like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular Township Board meeting for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all please stand, face the flag, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Berry, could you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott. Here. Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Hornberger. Here. Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here.
Item 4, the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye.
Item 5, presentations. We have no presentations scheduled tonight. Item 6, department reports. I'll start with the board for department reports. Board members? Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just want to let the board know that the clerk's office has been preparing for a standard election audit. It is a random sampling that the state takes, and Chesterfield was selected for one of our precincts. Again, that's very standard, and it is random, so we have been preparing for that to take place. I believe next week is our day, one of our days next week. The county will be conducting the audit. They will be conducting it here at the township offices. We've basically had to put all of our records regarding the election kind of on hold for that precinct until the audit is completed. But once that is completed, then we will be allowed to proceed with bagging all of that election up and finishing up what we have left to do with that. But as of right now, it's on hold for that purpose. Also, the clerk's office staff have begun an exhaustive records inventory. We will present, we've begun and finished it, and we will be presenting our findings to the board in an agenda item later this evening. Thank you.
Individual department reports. Mr. Palin.
Good evening. Tonight I passed out to the board the 2024 Planning Commission annual report. The Michigan Planning Enabling Act requires that we do that annually, so I've given that to you tonight, and I'll just hit some highlights on it. So the township's planning commission consists of 9 members. They come from a variety of professional backgrounds that can assist the planning commission in making their decisions. One of which is a trustee. Most of 2024 was served by Trustee DeMink, and then after the election, Trustee Vosberg took that place. Giffords Webster is our planning consultant. We use Joe Boehm and Stephanie Osborne as our planners from their firm. They assist us with a lot of our development reviews, and they attend all the planning commission meetings. For 2024, the planning commission reviewed 15 site plan applications, 3 sign packages, 7 special land use applications, 3 rezonings, and 2 single family developments. The site plan reviews are a process to ensure that the development plans meet the standards of the zoning ordinance. These standards are non-discretionary, they're black and white. If the development is a permitted use and meets those standards, it must be approved by the planning commission. Some of the highlights on site plans that they reviewed this year would be the expansion to Stalls Automotive. Also in the same industrial development, Solar Atmosphere is doing an expansion. They're just finishing up with construction now. We had the Maverick gas station approved in 2 locations, 23 in Sass and 21 in Town Center. And then also we had the Sheets that was approved as a redevelopment at 23 in Donner. The special land use applications, those are a little bit more involved. There's a little bit more discretion for the planning commission in those. There are some standards that must, or there's 8 standards that must be met, and then also the site plan is tied to a special land use development. Some of the highlights on those would be the Take 5 oil change that was approved at 23 in Gratiot and the Starbucks on 23 Mile Road. For 2024, the commission also considered 3 rezoning requests, which the board will be familiar with because all 3 of them came to the township board as well. Additionally, there's been some discussions on ordinance amendments. They're currently still discussing ordinances for fueling stations, and if they want to change those standards. And they've identified some priorities for this year moving forward, which would be solar uses and building materials. And that's pretty much a summary. The one last thing I would mention is that the 2024 Planning Michigan Conference was held in Grand Rapids. It was attended by 3 Planning Commission members, and they typically do that on a rotating schedule. A few will go every year for the annual conference. Other than that, there was 14 meetings held throughout the year. They did 1 training session, which we try to do annually, and we'll do another one this year. With that, that's a brief summary.
Thank you, sir. Mr. O'Connor, all yours.
Good evening. At the last board meeting, the board awarded to LD Augustini and Sons the work on the storm sewer outlet coming out of Bay Harbor. This is kind of a simplified traffic control plan. Local residents will have access to Jefferson Avenue to get to where they need to go. There is a rerouting for the through traffic, Sugarbush to 21 Mile Road and through. In the immediate area of the work, which is Jefferson across Mallard and Forbes, the lane will be closed and it will only be one-way traffic in that area, one-way traffic heading to New Baltimore. So Mallard and Forbes and Jefferson, those 2 intersections will be closed. You'll have to, get to the Mallard and Forbes closer to 21 Mile Road to get to your property. And that work is scheduled to start in mid-February. You'll see some activity out there. The other update is starting in August of '23, after the big rain event, we interrogated all the sanitary sewer manholes in that area of Jefferson. We looked at probably just over 200 manholes and repaired about 60 of them. The repairs were raising them from either half a foot up to 2 feet and re-waterproofing the joints in the frame and the cover. So that is a couple pictures of some manholes that have been adjusted and raised and decreases the likelihood of rainwater getting into them during big rain events. So that work started, the interrogation started in August of '23, and we just wrapped up about 60 manholes a couple months ago. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about is the pond maintenance, the 7 ponds that we maintain. The ground is frozen. 'Tis the season to go cut Phragmites because they're dormant, they're easy to cut. So this is some pictures of the equipment that we're using. The board authorized the trackless cutter, which works very good for cutting Phragmites. You can't see it, but if that dude has a smile on his face, it's very fun to operate. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're just going to give a quick facility update on some various projects. First, we're going to start with this. Obviously, it's timely because we're electing some new committee members to our Street, Sidewalks, and Pathway Committee, so this kind of falls in line with that. So you'll see a couple of these signs, actually 3 of them pop up in the near future in the township. We secured, or are in the process of securing 2 parcels. I apologize, it's hard to see, so I'll provide some details. There's a piece on Altman behind Kroger. That's that upper piece that's not labeled number 1. That yellow line that you see coming down is actually Altman. And then that lower piece is our property across from Brandenburg. Those 2 numbers represent the signs that we'll be putting up. And there's over you can see that number 60 acres of new green space that will be provided to the township, that we plan on keeping green space but adding pathways and cleaning up the road frontage. So that leads me to my next pictures. This is actually that Altman piece behind Kroger. This is from Google Maps. You can see that it's just a side road with some debris and phragmites, and the farther you go back, the more phragmites. So if you drove by there the last couple days, you could see us on site. And I'm just going to show you a quick video to see. If you look to the left, you can see that's the new Baltimore piece. You can see how high the frags are. When you look to the right, when you reference that Google Earth picture, you could see how it was just stuffed with phragmites. So to Mitch's comments earlier, with our new equipment, we've been out cutting back and clearing those phragmites. We're not cutting down all the trees, but you'll see when we make this turn up here, there's not a lot of trees where those phragmites grow in so dense. So our team's been out there the last couple days just kind of cutting back the frags and clearing that space so we can get a better idea. Now, when you go back into this property, it's really nice and wooded, but that front edge just had a lot of frags. So we're gonna clean up those frags, we're gonna dry it out, and we'll meet with the new committees and we'll talk about how we plan to move forward, where we plan to put in the pathways, and get in some detailed discussions. But we really couldn't see the property really well till we got in there and started clearing those frags. So you can see a couple of our team members have been doing a great job. And we had 2 pieces of equipment out there the last couple of days and got about 2 acres of property cleared. That's our new tool cat in the back, and then our skid steers just with brush hog attachments, kind of just taking our time, picking away at it, but making good progress. So I wanted to share those photos with you. This will flip in about a second to an overhead view, and you can see for as much property as that is over there, we didn't cut too much. I know it's hard to tell, but that is Altman below, and then that upper hook is where we're kind of cutting out the frag. So the goal is to get this to kind of dry out. If we have a really wet spring, we might not make it back in there, but we just wanted to clean up that line of property because it's always just been a junk collector. So this next parcel we touched on earlier, this is that second parcel. You'll see a sign go up. This is the piece on the southern end of Brandenburg Park. It actually is really nice. You can see that white line. This will tie us right back into our Salt River Nature Center. So you'll be able to go from Shoreline Park to a wooded trail that goes all the way through back to the Salt River. This piece of property on the road frontage, this is another shot from Google Earth. You can see there's a sign there. There was a couple real estate signs. You can see there was an older one to the left, all overgrown, hasn't been maintained in a while. In the near future, to Mitch's comment, if the ground stays cold, we're going to get in there and we're going to start clearing that property too. So if you see us out there working, it's not a big housing development. We're going to get a sign up there and you'll be able to see that we're saving it for green space. See, sorry, it's not going. This next slide, we've been doing a lot of work, as most of you know, at the police station, which has been great. The last thing we've been planning for months to get this DTE transformer fired. We're taking it from overhead pole power to underground power. That tent doesn't look like much, but it represents a lot. Thankfully, our electrician, David Fury, and working with our PD and Captain McNair and a bunch of us have been coordinating this project for months. Well, as you know, the weather got super cold and it was almost impossible to work outside. So the facility boys built a nice little ice shanty there with a heater inside. That wire is about the size of a quarter, and when it gets cold, you can't really bend it. So we were able to get the work done even despite the cold, which was good. So we're staying on our timeline. So you can see now, it's hard to tell, but that transformer that you see, that green box, there used to be a pole there with overhead transformers. That's gone. Now we can continue our metal paneling. Our contractors are actually on site today and tomorrow to put the structural steel on. Then we'll apply the air barrier, the insulation, and then the steel skin, and we'll be able to finish that side of the building. These next slides, we're happy to present that we got our security gates up around the parking area, the perimeter of the police department. This is the rear gate, which in the future, I believe Captain McNair is going to come back for the actual gate controls. But right now, the gate's in place. And then this is the front gate. That front wall is kind of up against dispatch. That's looking at it from the roadside. When you look at it from this way, this is the back side. So the gate kind of tucks behind the wall. That snow that you see will be a turf area with some planters where our dispatchers can walk out and just kind of take a break and a breath of fresh air and then walk back into our dispatch center. This is the front door when you walk in, and the reason why I'm bringing this picture up is, you know, when you walk in those doors, we've always had the mats to keep the water and salt down. Although it seems simple, it's always a trip hazard. So I just wanted to make the public aware over the next couple weeks. Starting this week, we're going to block one of the 4 doors while we do some sealing work, and then we're going to work over the holiday into President's Day, and that following Tuesday, we'll be blocking both those entrances as part of our renovation project in Phase 2 and Phase 3. We'll be removing that tile and putting flush mount walk-off mats. So some of our seniors and other residents that, you know, you're kind of dragging your feet a little bit, we don't want them to trip, because we've seen several people, even though we constantly are putting new mats down, so those walk-off mats will be flush to the tile, a little bit easier and safer travel through the entryway, and keep it clean for us. So that'll go from end to end, and that tile will be removed. This next picture was from our first meeting in December. This is the picture I showed for a department head. This was our department head update. This was our building department counter when we started demo of phase 2, which is those back offices over there. And this is from yesterday. So we are in the process of drywalling our offices. These are our trustee offices. So when you come up, there'll be trustee offices and then a door going back to the admin area. This is the open ball pin area. As you can see, we're in the drywall phases and the HVAC phases. So we're cruising right along. We're making good progress. And this project is on time and under budget. And that's the way we plan to keep it. Also included in this project, we put a big dollar amount in there for IT upgrades. That was a big problem that we had when in here. There was wires run everywhere and it wasn't clean. So you can see to that picture to the left, we put cable trays throughout the building. All the wires will remain in cable trays. And as we get more technical, it'll be a nice raceway, almost a highway going from office to office. That picture to the right is our new servers, one of 2 rooms we have that house our servers with our door controls for that side of the building. That brings us to this next picture. This is the boardroom. This is our phase 3, which I just want to remind everybody that we will be moving our board meetings next month to the community center. We'll get more into that, but this room here is kind of critical. We got some prices. Karen and her team, the IT team, worked diligently with some of the board members to go through and find some technical solutions for our new board table and our meeting. So we got some prices. We were going to present those today, but we've saved enough money in our construction budget that we can pull that into our construction budget. So we're going to bring that back to the board and just share those details, but planning on doing it under the construction umbrella. This is where our board meetings will be at our community center. I just wanted to put an arrow in there so everybody's aware. In the back corner of the building, in our multi-purpose room, that's kind of where that yellow shaded arrow is. So that will be all through the months going into next month, and probably into March. We'll have our meetings there. We're actually looking forward to getting some people in there and touring the building and checking it out. So we're in the process now, our team, of setting up the board meeting there. Should work out well. We're looking to have everybody over there to check it out and see what you think. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 7, public comments on agenda items only. There is 3-minute public comments. If you would, please state your name for the record. Not required, but just so we can keep track. The mic is open.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. In regards to regular agenda item A, in regards to the community block grants, fully support every one of those block grants. It's a great thing that Chesterfield participates in that, and we are giving the money out. Item K, the approved update to the APO. I am disappointed that as far as compensation for the members of the board, which are, our normal residents in this township, that we're only paying them on an average of $30 per meeting. So this board in the month of December gave themselves anywhere from a 10 to a 20% pay raise and raised the stipend to $150. Well, in the APO, you guys are paying yourselves anywhere from $100 to $150 at these meetings. In the meantime, we're giving the residents $30. I don't think that's right. I think that should be raised. They take time out of their day to, ensure to participate on these boards, and I think the average should be $75 to $100 commission for anybody that's on these boards. And I want to thank each and every one of them for wanting to be on these boards and to participate in the community. And it was good to see that we actually had a good, diverse equity individuals participating from all walks, because that's what we need in this community. And it's important, and it was good to see the names on there. The other thing on the bill run that I am disappointed, again, we need to cut the waste in the bill run, and we need to look at each and every item. Under facilities and operations, the taxpayers paid $4,500 to have a tree removed. We have a chipper that the residents paid for, and I know that we have individuals on staff that are very capable that could have handled that and saved the residents $4,500. Another thing on the bill run that continues to rise are the lease payments through Enterprise on the vehicles. I mean, if this township is in such great shape, it's cheaper to buy the vehicles and not lease them and maintenance them. So in the long run, if you do the math, it's absolutely correct. And another thing I didn't understand under facilities and operations is there were a couple items purchased, wall clocks, anywhere from $150 to $185. I just thought that was kind of excessive in the amounts because they typically run anywhere from $40 to $50. So again, if we can maintain the focus and try to cut the waste, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is Joe Kadich. I live on Sutton. I have a question about all the appointments being made today, particularly the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals. I just wonder how they are picked, where they are picked from, and what qualifications you require. These things come up every year. People are appointed to these boards. No notices are put out to the general public that I know of requesting, anybody who's qualified to work on the board. And I just wonder what qualifications you require. I'm bringing that up because one of the big things that's coming up for at least the Planning Commission is it was in the paper last week about a 150-acre purchase, or trying to purchase, in the northwestern part of the township, and they want to use it for an auto salvage yard. And your comment in the paper, Supervisor Kersten, was, well, it comes before the Planning Commission. To me, I'd want to know what those people are thinking on that Planning Commission. I don't think anybody in this township is for that. And I think you ought to be leading the fight, saying, here's what we expect. What can you provide me with to help stop this? You haven't done that. And a lot of it, I think, comes from you too, is to particularly on, it's going to require rezoning. You haven't said anything about that. I think you basically should explain to the audience and the rest of the residents of the township how you're going to stop that. And it's going to come up to the Planning Commission, and you're appointing people, or reappointing them to the Planning Commission and the Zoning Appeals Board. I think we should know who those people are and what they think. Thank you.
Good evening to all. My name is Saima Khalil, and I might need a little bit of direction. I'm here on behalf of a nonprofit, Hearts for Homes, requesting CDBG funds, and I'm not sure if that's this part of the agenda or on another part of the agenda. Okay, I apologize. Thank you very much.
Any further public comments? We'll move on to item 8, consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 14th, 2025. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Discussion? Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9, public hearing. There's a public hearing scheduled. This is your time. Clerk Berry.
9A is to conduct a public hearing on January 28th, 2025 at 7 p.m. to hear comments regarding the allocation of the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Funds.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Public hearing is open at 7:26. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Hornberger. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye, 7:26 still. The mic is yours, ma'am.
Good evening to all. My name is Saima Khalil, and thank you for helping me out. This is my first time attending. I am here on behalf of a nonprofit in Macomb County that's called Hearts for Homes. Hearts for Homes has been servicing Macomb County and it was established as a 501c3 in 2016. The mission of Hearts for Homes is to keep children and families in their homes. So typically, we come in to assist families that are in transition, which is usually from a state of homelessness, from living in a motel, and they have secured housing. We come in to assist at that time. And people that are experiencing evictions, Hearts for Homes steps in to help at that time. Since we've existed, we've helped nearly 400 children stay in their homes and stay with their families. Specifically, we've helped about 7 families in Chesterfield. I was sent over here today to ask that Hearts for Homes be considered for your CDBG funds. On a regular basis, we receive phone calls from people all over Macomb County and quite frankly in this economy from people outside of Macomb County as well who are experiencing difficulty in maintaining their existing housing and are experiencing an eviction and need funds to help with security deposits. Hearts for Homes will partner with other local nonprofit organizations and houses of worship to collect funds to help families stay in their homes. We also regularly hold events in the community for fundraising. We hold an annual golf event. We also have an annual euchre event and other activities that we do to encourage people to come out and support. We are requesting these funds. We hope that you will consider Hearts for Homes. I did bring some information. If you would allow, I would like to present that information just to each one of you, and that's my request. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Warnock, and I'm a volunteer coordinator at Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers. The number of older adults in Macomb County is expected to increase by more than 90% by 2040. This group of seniors needs extra support services due to changes that come with aging, chronic health conditions, or disabilities. At the same time, family structures are changing, often leaving seniors with nobody nearby to help. For over 30 years, our nonprofit organization has been providing free basic services to hundreds of frail, older, and physically challenged adults, helping them remain safely in their homes with the help of hundreds of volunteers. This assistance helps with transportation, chores, respite breaks, errands, and reducing loneliness. These opportunities provide fulfilling experiences for those who wish to volunteer, as well as support for those in need. The CDBG Safe at Home project, part of IVC, is part of our larger chore and repair program. The project was developed to provide additional chore and repair services in communities that allocate funding for this purpose. Safe at Home allows us to assist low to moderate income seniors and physically challenged adults with indoor and outdoor chores, minor home repairs, and routine housekeeping. We identify the individuals who cannot do these tasks on their own and have limited resources and prioritize those with the greatest need. We are requesting CDBG funds to increase the number of low-income citizens we can reach to grow our program, as well as to coordinate the volunteers who do these services. IVC provides over 20,000 hours of help over all of its services to nearly 500 people in need each year. After many years of not receiving CDBG funding from Chesterfield, we were thrilled when trustee David Joseph advocated for IVC funding, for including IVC in the funding last year, resulting in nearly $1,500 for us. This allowed us to coordinate 25 CDBG tasks in this community in this funding year. We are confident that additional funding in the 25-26 year would allow us to help even more seniors in Chesterfield. We regularly get phone calls and notes of thanks for the things that our volunteers do. One volunteer who went out to fix a running toilet noticed that a screen was sticking and fixed that while he was there. Another one who visited one of our seniors took care of things when that senior had to go to the hospital unexpectedly with some housekeeping and chores around there. So other examples through this project could be replacing locks, washing windows, raking leaves, routine housekeeping, and installing smoke alarms. With CDBG funding, the Safe at Home project can continue to grow, and assistance can be granted to a variety of lower-income Chesterfield Township senior citizens. Thank you to the Board of Trustees for your consideration, and any dollar amount granted is greatly appreciated in our program. We hope to partner with you going forward. And if you know of any seniors who could use our help, please send them our way. And if you know any volunteers, we would love to have them in our program. Our website's ivcinfo.org.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I answer any questions for you?
We'll have answers or questions in the public hearing.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Fisher, and I am the Development Director for Maggie's Wigs for Kids in Michigan. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present information in consideration of a grant through CDBG. As you know, we are a local grassroots 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides wigs and support services to children ages 3 to 18 at no charge throughout the state of Michigan. Founded in 2003, we have helped over 5,600 Michigan families, and the need continues to be great. We've helped several families in the Chesterfield community since we started our program 22 years ago. There's about 16 families in Chesterfield that we've been able to support, one in the last year. And in addition to the wigs that we provide, we're always growing our support services to help our kids emotionally, socially, and psychologically. We've had great success with our skincare and makeup classes that helps the kids embrace a positive self-image. We've expanded on our VR for Kids program, where we give out virtual reality headsets to support them with pain management, meditation, relaxation, and the comfort of a virtual pet to care for. This technology that we're utilizing now is in place at Stanford and Yale pediatric hospitals. And we started servicing kids with cancer with these headsets. And it worked so well that we expanded it to incorporate all of our other kids with other forms of hair loss, such as alopecia, trichotillomania, where they have the urge to pull their hair out, burns, and other disorders. So those headsets are really going well. And all of our WIG recipients are entitled to these services and so much more. We're in the process of building an addition to our wellness center as well, because we've been growing so much over the last 4 years since we moved into it. So believe it or not, we actually need more room. We need more wigs available to the children so we can serve them immediately. Class supplies, comfort items that we put into welcome bags, which are presents they get on their very first visit. So just like you, where you're building and renovating, so are we. And this evening, we are asking for a CDBG funding. We are grateful for any amount because it means one more child and their family will be helped from your community. So any amount you allocate is very much appreciated. And most importantly, if you ever know of a kid in need of our services, we do ask that you refer them to us. We're a very referral-based organization because we help everybody. We charge nothing. We turn no one away. They come in, they get the wig, they get all the emotional, social, and psychological support that they need when they're going through their health challenge. And we incorporate all of those services for their siblings and caregivers and parents and guardians. Whoever needs the help can get it, which is great. So you're welcome to find us online at www.wigsforkids.org or call us. 586-772-6656 is the number. You can ask for Maggie Varney, our founder and CEO. She's always there ready to meet the needs of the kids. And I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Anna Tomlanovich. I'm here representing Care House, the Children's Advocacy Center in Macomb County. I am a forensic interviewer and crisis counselor at Care House. Our main office is located in Mount Clemens with a satellite office located in Warren. Care House is the only agency in Macomb County who offers comprehensive services for child victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and children who have witnessed a violent act, as well as support to their non-offending family members. Our goals are to minimize trauma for the child victim and to provide coping skills, advocacy, case management for the child and their family. We collaborate with all law enforcement jurisdictions in Macomb County, as well as the FBI, Homeland Security, and ICE, Child Protective Services, the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, medical and mental health professionals. Care House serves as a beacon of hope for child victims, providing them with a safe space for their voices to be heard and their needs to be met. In our space, children can share anything that might be troubling to them, and when a detective brings an alleged victim to Care House, they are making a whole array of vital services available to that child, teen, or vulnerable adult. They will not only receive a forensically sound, fact-gathering, developmentally appropriate interview by a highly trained forensic interviewer, but their family will also receive information, services to guide them through a time of profound stress and crisis. Some of these services are crisis counseling, child safety and trauma assessment, parent and child support groups, trauma-focused therapy, advocacy, ongoing case management, and referral to other community services, and so much more. Families are never charged with any of the services that they receive at Care House, and we provide services to all children that have been referred to us. I'm also proud to report that according to our most recent independent financial audit, 89% of every dollar that comes to Care House is specifically devoted to serving children and families in their community. Since our opening, we have conducted 11,300 child forensic interviews with over 525 of those children residing in Chesterfield. Last year in 2024, Care House coordinated 620 forensic interviews, and 18 of those were children from Chesterfield Township. And so far this year, we've already conducted forensic interviews for 5 Chesterfield children. Additionally, we provide ongoing therapy and advocacy services for several Chesterfield children and families each year. We depend on support from the community to provide a voice for children victims and a safe place for them to be heard. We are very grateful to the ongoing partnership with the detectives from Chesterfield Township and for your long-standing support to our program. We are requesting any donation from you guys this year, and we really appreciate you guys, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Tina Huff, and I'm the Children's Services Coordinator at Turning Point Shelter Program. Turning Point has been providing a safe place for families to flee violence since 1980. Between July 1st of 2023 and June 30th of 2024, the Emergency Shelter Program has provided 120 shelter bed nights to 5 Chesterfield Township residents, and across other agency programs, we have served 6 additional Chesterfield Township residents. Turning Point's Emergency Shelter Program is a safe haven for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. It provides immediate safety, crisis intervention, and resources for family trying to establish this basic safety. The project is a multifaceted approach to ending the cycle of violence in families. Prior to entering shelter, survivors will call Turning Point's hotline number to request shelter. If space is available and they meet the program requirements, the survivor and their family, if there's a family attached, is approved to enter the shelter. Once they arrive at shelter, they are given a tour of the shelter, which is ADA accessible. Upon touring the shelter, they will see things such as we have an extended educational area, indoor and outdoor, for children and teens. We also have a dining area. We have a recreational area for families to play in and do activities in. We have private counseling areas. We also have a group space so they can work with other nonprofits when they can come in and serve them there as well. They have their own bedrooms and private bathrooms too. Upon coming to shelter, within 24 hours, survivors are met with one of our 2 case managers, where they meet with them and come up with an individualized plan. That individualized plan is based on their personal goals, and they can be working on anything from safety to housing to financial stability. This plan can also include literacy, immigration, credit repair, safety planning, and just even securing counseling for sexual assault, domestic violence, and/or human trafficking. And if they do take counseling while they're there, they can receive the counseling after they leave shelter as well. So that still follows them outside of leaving the shelter. Turning Point also continues to provide a comprehensive services to children while in shelter. So this includes everything as crisis support, tutorial and educational assistance, safety planning, and all kinds of recreational activities. During the summertime, we have a whole 10-week summer camp for the children who are out in the community. We take them to all kinds of different places, from parks to museums to movies to all kinds of different things. We also host parties throughout the year based on different holidays, Halloween, what have you, Christmas decorating, Lunar New Year tomorrow. So we just have all kinds of different activities we do with them too throughout the year. We have tons of volunteers who also come in and host different programming for them each night after school. We have a book garden, we have homework help, we have a craft night and things like that. Then we sometimes will host like family nights and do different activities with the whole group. And then we also offer therapy for the children while they're as well, so they can get therapy for children and teens. And again, that service is still available to them after they leave shelter, so that follows them too. So in the beginning of this, I said that when they come into shelter, they make the phone call, and if space is available, we provide them shelter. We run at full capacity pretty much 100% of the year. There are so many phone calls and so many spaces that we do not have available for people who call. It's become really overwhelming sometimes. So the money that we're asking for today would go for hotel. So we're able to sometimes put people in hotel when we're at capacity. So that allows us to give them hotel accommodations, provide them with food, provide them with money for laundry, provide them with clothing and transportation that they need. So we would appreciate any support that you offer us today. Again, that money would be used and earmarked for a hotel for people when we are at capacity and cannot serve them. And especially in these colder weathers, it's been really overwhelming. So we appreciate the support last year, and anything that you could give today would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. I'm going to ask this board to allocate money to everybody that came to this podium. Considering the circumstances and what I see on a daily basis, especially in Chesterfield, on the corner of 23 Mile Road, 21 Mile Road. So there are definitely a ton of people in need. We need to do our fair share in this community to help individuals, and as you can see, these great organizations definitely reach out to our residents, and you know, they don't close their doors to anybody, and they try to help everybody. So I'm asking this board to give money to every organization that asked for it tonight to do the right thing. I mean, and then the other thing that I'm going to go out and ask is, you guys, again, you gave yourself huge pay raises from 10 to 20%, and I'm asking the full-time elected officials to find it in your heart to at least donate $1,000 and part-timers $500 to these organizations. So I think it's only fair. Thank you.
Any further comments from the floor? Any further comments from the floor? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there any support?
Support.
Supported by Treasurer Elliott. Clerk Bear?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Clerk Berry, aye.
Public hearing is closed at 7:47. Item 10 on the regular agenda. Item 10A. Clerk Berry.
Item 10A is a recommendation to approve the allocation of the 2025 Community Block Grant Public Service Funds as follows. Chesterfield Senior Programming, $12,500. Care House, $7,000. Turning Point, $2,000. Maggie's Wigs for Kids, $1,000. McRest, $1,000. And Senior Chore Program, $3,000 for a CDBG Public Service Funds total of $26,500.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion by Trustee Vosberg. Just for point of clarity, in this, Hearts for Homes, Karen, was not included in this?
Sure. Yep, so our group did meet and has a recommendation on this agenda item. There are some that are here tonight that are not on the recommended item.
Can you list those off real quick that
Absolutely,
weren't
yep.
on our list?
That are on our list
That
as
were not
presented?
on the agenda list?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there an amendment to the motion? Is that,
No, not yet. I overspoke.
okay.
Trustee Vosberg made the original motion. I was going to second it, but I knew, understanding that there's going to be some amendments to it. If you want to make an amendment, I'm more than willing to do that if Trustee Vosberg is.
Yeah, if I might, Mr. Supervisor, I would, maybe you could offer a friendly amendment to the original motion maker, which would spare me some time and just jumping out.
I knew
So,
you were, I was
yeah,
kind of
so
prepared for where
I'll,
you're going.
thank you. So if there's some additionals and some changes, maybe we could just put those on the record and see if the original motion maker might be inclined to amend.
Trustee Vosberg?
What's this?
I was,
Did you support the motion?
I supported the
So
motion.
we have a motion on the floor then?
Yes, there
Thank
is.
you. All right.
Is there discussion on the original motion? Would it,
There's a million ways to do this, yes, if there can have discussion on the original motion. If the original motion is to stand without the amendments, I'm inclined to vote no, and then offer a new motion, which, from a parliamentary standpoint, I would appreciate maybe just entertaining the suggestions for the amendment and possibly consider Trustee Vosberg making a friendly amendment to your motion.
Yeah, why don't we just discuss what it is we would like to include or change, and then at some point, make that a motion?
yes. So on the discussion piece, Treasurer Elliott, go ahead.
Before we make an amendment, because this is the second year we've gone through this, my question is can we ask how this is decided, how these numbers come, how do we come to them? Who is on that committee, just for clarity? Because I think I'd like to maybe avoid us having to go through this next year. Maybe there's something in the process that we could change. Would that be okay? Could you explain that?
Sure, happy to speak to it. So this comes to us through our grants committee that we have. It's made up of the supervisor's office, our township, our Parks and Recreation Department and Facilities and Operations Department, members from each of those. We come together as a group, we review the requests that are provided, we look at what we've done in years past, what our senior programming plans to do for this current upcoming year as well, knowing that that's an option for this funding, as we can also give it to senior programming, we can also give it to these nonprofits that are requesting. As you can see on the list in front of you, and especially on the first one that gives you a breakdown of what all of the requesting agencies are provided, what we are gifted and allocated from Macomb County is $26,500 for the 2025 season. What is being asked of us is $28,080. So we are physically unable to fund everything that is requested, and that's without taking any money for the township and senior programming. So we do have to make decisions and work through the information that's provided through Macomb County, as well as our knowledge of the community and what is used in our community. We do have to make changes to that, and that's where the recommended action comes in front of you. I know for this year, especially knowing what last year was, we sent out to the board a couple requests to ask for input and ask for any changes that you wanted to see changed or areas that you wanted more discussion on before we came to the board tonight.
Is there specific criteria, say a percentage or something that you're looking for when you make these decisions?
Largely, our discussions went on what funding was recaptured in past years and what funding was used for Chesterfield-specific residents.
Okay, because I saw in a note on like the Hearts for Homes that it says that we're using money from other communities in order to service the Chesterfield Township. Was it Hearts for Homes? Or no, Interfaith, sorry. Interfaith Caregivers put a note on theirs that it said that we're using money from other communities to service the Chesterfield residents.
So each of these communities asked money from several different communities. For instance, Interfaith Volunteers that you're looking at asked for several communities. They have over a dozen that's on their requested list. Each of those are turned back into their township or community. So what you're seeing is people from other areas being used the same funding that they were gifted.
Good. Michelle, Hearts for Home was not listed in this, on our agenda item. Is that the only one here tonight that is not listed?
There are two that are here tonight that are not on the requested item. That would be Hearts for Homes and Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
So Trustee Vosberg, I guess where I'd like to go with this is, would you be amenable to amending it to include a donation from them, or to them, to those requesters that aren't listed, and then just reduce it out of the senior Parks and Rec program, as we did last year?
What's the amount that you're looking at?
I'm open to discussion. $1,000 each is where I would start.
I had jotted down $1,000 for the Hearts for Home one.
Correct.
The Interfaith Caregivers, it's a very worthy organization. However, they're located in the southern part of the county where they do most of their work. I realize they did help some people here. It is the Safe at Home program is what they're saying that they provided services for. And I know people who've contacted them for transportation. They weren't able to provide it, and I can understand. Probably they're located south, and so their volunteers are in the. I understand that, but that's why I don't. If somebody makes if someone else wants to, if there's more people that want to give them some, that's okay. But I would like to do the 1,000 for the Hearts for Homes, and perhaps give 500 to the interfaith caregivers, and then hopefully they can provide more services, and then we can look at next year. Yeah. Okay. So then it would, what we have so far then is
1,500 from the remaining 26,500 from, or I'm sorry, the 12,500 from.
right. So 11,000 for seniors, add 100 for, or 1,000 I mean for Hearts for Homes, and add 500 for interfaith.
That is correct. That's correct.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Pardon me?
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Yes, I will support that if that's your, the motion you're gonna make. Further discussion? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the organizations that came tonight and presented. The process is maybe open for some tightening, perhaps next go-around. We do have a newly formed senior advisory committee, and a number of these services do impact them in both ways. In terms of the original intention, from at least as long as I've been around the township, the CDBG were funds came to the county. The township is sort of a second-tier distribution, point of distribution, and for most of my time in the township, it was handled by Senior Services Director, and then now Ms. Vanderson, Parks and Rec, gets to decide and make recommendations. I did appreciate the invitation, that you sent out months ago to all board members with any suggestions on input, and the last time we kind of did it seat of our pants, and what we ended up doing was sacrificing the entirety of the township generated CDBG monies, that being the $12,500, and we distributed and gave the presenting charities everything that they asked for. So I'm good with the modifications this year, and if I could, I'd just like to speak to a few of these organizations that came here tonight. First of all, Ms. Varney and her organization, Wigs for Kids, they, as Trustee Vosberg pointed out, it's hard to know when we give these monies how much of it goes back in the form of direct benefit to our residents. And it is a challenge for the organizations because they never know where their referrals are going to come from. One of the things that I've been most impressed with, all of them who were here tonight, and especially Ms. Marnie, it doesn't matter where they come from in the county and whether or not that municipality had donated to them or not. They will help as they can throughout the year, and her organization is phenomenal. I do understand Trustee Vosberg's Interfaith is inundated with requests from indigent population in the south end of our county, but I think they do a great job of reaching out to those in need in the Chesterfield community. And I would like to see more than 500, but I'm willing to compromise, and I will personally make up some difference, and I'd like to be involved with the interfaith group. They do phenomenal work, and so I'm going to make it a point during this cycle to not only get involved with my time, but also financial contribution. I appreciated the presentation from Hearts from Homes, and as she indicated in her presentation, it was my request that we make up the difference in our general fund budget amendment to the seniors so that the senior center was not deprived of any CDBG monies. It just came from another source. And lastly, I would just point out that the presentation from the organization at Care House is an organization that is very dear to me. I started my career in this county over 30 years ago in Children's Protective Services, and Care House was just kind of getting their start. And I can tell you that as a protective service investigator, and our board was given a packet of information, and I would ask the board members to look particularly at page 3 and take a look at what I believe Ms. Tomich, I don't know, Ms. Tomich presented, and the page that we have is changing the child abuse system. And so she walks us through, in that page, she walks us through how a child who reports sexual abuse was once handled in our county, and that was a child reports to a teacher or ends up at the hospital, and they report abuse that was perpetrated upon them, and then they are taken to the hospital, potentially the next step being law enforcement, a social worker at school, and as the child continues to tell the story over and over and over again, there is a re-victimization of that child. The event description is very, very traumatic, and so research suggests that by the time the average case finally made its way to the courtroom, that child had been interviewed several times. And what Care House stepped in and did is they hire very, very competent therapists who are forensically trained interviewers, and I believe Ms. Tomich identified herself as one of those interviewers. And what she does is she interviews the child in a room that is appropriate for the age, and there's a comfort between her and the victim. The interview takes place, and she asks questions that are not leading but detailed questions about the incident, and the investigators, the prosecutors, the law enforcement, the social workers are all able to see that interview, at least the way it was done when I was there, by a closed circuit monitor. So in another room, we are able to gather the information necessary for prosecution, and the significance of that is that children who have gone through the system under the old way would describe the retelling in almost worse and more traumatic ways than the original abuse that was perpetrated upon them. So it is heart-wrenching work, and it is also a very, very rewarding career that you have, Ms. Tomich. So I'm glad that our board can be part of continuing your mission, and I wish that we could do more. I wish we could do more for all of these organizations, but there are a couple that really are just unbelievable organizations, and I will be in touch with you to talk about how I can personally be involved with your organization, both with my time and a financial contribution. So thank you for coming here tonight.
Thank you. Any further discussions from the board? I have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to support the disbursements as stated, including Hearts for Home 1,000 and Interfaith Care for 500. Is anything more, Clerk Berry? Is that it?
I got it.
Clerk Berry?
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10B.
Item 10B is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Ralph Jaworski Jr. to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1, 2027.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any
Second.
support? Clerk Berry. Mr. Jaworski could not make it here tonight. He said he was ill. Discussion? Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 10C.
Item 10C is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint James Klonowski to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1, 2026.
So move.
Support.
Was that Trustee Joseph?
Anderson.
Trustee Joseph,
Anderson.
supported by?
Trustee
Trustee Anderson, I'm sorry. Supported by Treasurer Elliott. Mr. Klonowski is here tonight. Discussion? I thought Larry King was the oldest resident in the township, but I think you are now, so. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10D.
Item 10D is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Rick LaBelle to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1, 2027.
Move to approve.
Support.
Trustee Vosberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott. I'm not touching this guy's age, so. Discussion. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10E.
Item 10E is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Carl Leonard to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1, 2027.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any
Support.
support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Discussion? No comment from me. The attorney's telling me to be quiet. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10F.
Item 10F is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to appoint Eric Heiderer to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 1, 2026.
Move to approve.
Trustee Vosberg,
Second.
supported by Clerk Berry. Mr. Hyder is here. He is new to the board. Can I impose you to go introduce yourself, sir? His qualifications and...
Good evening, Eric Heider, 46311 Candleberry. I was kind of born and raised in New Baltimore. Been living in Chesterfield Township. I have a architectural degree, and I own my own architectural firm in Clinton Township, so my vast knowledge of the architectural field was going to be a great process for the Planning Commission to answer one of my fellow residents' answers on qualifications. So I've done a lot of stuff in Clinton Township and Chesterfield and the surrounding neighborhoods, so I'll bring a new light to the commission.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Discussion from the board? Clerk Berry?
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10G.
Item 10G is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Sam Baroni to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term ending September 1, 2027.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott? Discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10H.
H is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Rick LaBelle to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term ending June 1, 2027.
Is there a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg? Discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd just like to point out for people that might be wondering why the same person's being appointed to two different commissions. One of the members of the Planning Commission does need to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals, so that's why he's on both of those boards.
Thank you for that explanation. Clerk Perry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10I.
Item 10I is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to appoint Robert Finazzo to the Parks and Recreation Commission with a term ending January 27th, 2028.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Barry. Discussion? Clerk Barry?
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10J.
Item 10J is a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to establish the Streets, Sidewalks, Pathways Committee in Chesterfield Township beginning February 6th, 2025.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Second.
Clerk Barry, just, this is a new committee, and again, the reason why is, it's pretty broad as we're growing. Streets, sidewalks, pathways is a growing topic in the township. I think this committee's already met voluntarily and just kind of got a good foundation of where we should be going, prioritize streets and sidewalks, and also discuss some of the roadways and subdivision streets that are coming down the pipeline. So this advisory group is, I see as a straight asset to the township moving forward. Any discussion, further discussion?
Just a quick question. Who chairs the sidewalk committee?
Trustee Vosberg is.
Okay.
Any further questions? Clerk Barry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 10K.
Item 10K is to approve a recommendation by the supervisor to approve the proposed update to APO 2018-05 to include the addition of the Streets, Sidewalks, and Pathways Committee, Election Commission, Public Safety Committee, and Senior Advisory Committee.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Again, any support?
Second.
Clerk Barry?
Mr. Supervisor, I'm wondering, and I'm sorry for not getting this to you sooner, I'm wondering if you might consider, on page 65 of the board packet, you list the terms, and we have, 3-year terms, and some, I don't know if some are statutory, that, the ZBA is a 3-year term, if that's a statutory requirement, but I'm wondering, what would be the, if there would be any consideration of just making those 4-year terms to just run as the the Board of Trustees term, so we don't have a reappointment for a final year in the last year of our, just seems to be a little bit cleaner. And I'm wondering if you might make that amendment to the APO in your motion. ZBA and planning are statutory, I believe, correct? Is that, yeah?
Yeah. The other ones you can make as long or short as you want.
That's fine.
They
I
are-
haven't objected to that. So make-
Supervisor? They are staggered, just so you know. None of the appointments are they're all staggered, so they're on different years.
Oh, I see. I guess the distinction that I was making was the board representation, but you're talking about the individual member organization. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess there's nothing to prohibit us from, as a board, Mr. Supervisor, when you make your appointments, making those for the duration of the term.
Again, there's no legal requirement.
Very good, yeah, okay, thank you.
So you're good with the appointment terms right now?
Yeah, I realize that I'm opening a can of worms because it's more important that the individual members are staggered so that we don't have massive turnover. I was just thinking of it from the elected official standpoint, but that's easily remedied, and there's no need to make the change, so I withdraw my request. Thank you.
Understood. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Clerk Berry, to approve item 10K. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger? Aye. Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Item 10L.
Item 10L is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to appoint Keith Pionk to the Street, Sidewalk, and Pathways Committee with a term ending January 28, 2028.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Discussion? Clerk Berry?
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger? Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer, Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
I did not see Mr. Pionk here tonight. Item 10M.
Item 10M is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to appoint Keith Stonehouse to the Street, Sidewalk, Pathways Committee with a term ending January 28, 2028.
So moved.
Support.
Treasurer Elliott, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Mr. Stonehouse is here tonight. Any words at the podium, sir? Introduce yourself. You're not as old as the other residents, so.
Well, as you can see, I'm physically in shape to walk and run on these paths, so that's why they appointed me to this. But honestly, I was involved in Auburn Hills for 6 years in every committee and every council that I possibly could, and as I moved out here 11 years ago, I was looking to get involved and started meeting some of the residents, and I thought this was a good fit for me. I appreciate the appointment.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Clerk Berry? I have a motion by Treasurer Elliott, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry?
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger? Aye. Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
10N.
Item 10N is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to appoint Michelle Wilson-Merriwether to the Streets, Sidewalks, and Pathways Committee with a term ending January 28, 2028.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg? Ms. Elliott, Treasurer Elliott, I'm sorry. Ms. Merriweather could not make it tonight. Any discussion? Trustee Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I want to start by saying I cannot express strongly enough my opposition to this particular appointment recommendation. It's not a requirement that committee members or board members, various groups agree with me on every issue. In fact, tonight there are members of the audience who I have vehemently disagreed with. They have been opponents that have run for office against me, and we've had, well, you know, I take that back, not against me, but they have run for the seat that I was interested in. And we have had very spirited and I would say sometimes ugly interactions. I'm proud to put those political differences aside, and in one instance recommended the appointment of the individual, made the motion to do it. So it's not a requirement to agree with me in order to be in service to the township. But in this particular case, this individual has made very disparaging comments from that podium on multiple occasions. impugning our law enforcement officers. She has impugned our Friends of Chesterfield Police. She has taken issue with this board's actions when we were proposing an ordinance that she thought was targeting people of color. When I pushed back, I was called a racist. It was done in writing. There were emails sent to various minority organizations attacking my character to the point that I had contemplated a defamation, civil litigation. During this election cycle, that same individual came to the podium, made a number of disparaging comments that were personal, and when I pushed back on them publicly, on October 15th, this individual filed a campaign finance violation with the Secretary of State. That investigation is pending. I filed a rebuttal to her, in my opinion, erroneous. This individual has accused me, after engaging her civilly in this building, with some type of really bizarre assault case, filed a police report alleging that she was in fear for her safety and would not attend further meetings because of fear of this is very, very difficult individual that has not shown an ability to work with others that she disagrees with, and in my opinion, when she pushes back, she plays the race card from the bottom of the deck. And I have experienced in all walks of my personal and professional life an obligation to get along with others that may not see the world the way that I do, and in most instances have been relatively successful to accomplish the greater good. This is not simply an individual that I disagree with on political issues or personal issues. This is an individual that I think is problematic, and it's been very divisive to not only myself, but to members of this board, our police department, and in her complaint that she filed with the Secretary of State, which is currently pending, she listed on the form, and I'll provide it to any board member or member of the public that wants to see it, the bizarre language that she cites, referencing things that happened in this boardroom. I did send a copy of the complaint over to the township attorney just to ensure that there wasn't anything that encumbered other board members. And in her complaint, section 2 of the campaign finance disclosure complaint form, she identifies me. She identifies erroneously our human resource director, Michelle Brandenburg, and even mentions Michelle Vanderson. This is not an individual that is demonstrated a willingness to work with people that she disagrees with, and I think when the voters were given an opportunity to go to the polls and decide who would represent them, she was on the ballot, as was I. And by a margin of thousands of votes, I was awarded this seat and given the confidence of the residents. And I think that she presents a major disruption, and I cannot support her appointment to this committee and will be voting no. And I would ask my fellow board members to join with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Trustee Anderson?
I want to thank Mr. Joseph for what he just said. Mr. Kersten, I'll vote yes on this. This is your choice. You're recommending this, Miss Wilson-Merriwether for this position because you're doing it. I'll support it because you own it.
Trustee Hornberg.
I'm wondering if it wouldn't be best to maybe table this?
Pardon me?
To table this?
For?
Pull it.
I would support a postponement as well.
I would ask that if you're going to table it, Ms. Hornberger, I would like to table it until the resolution of the current Secretary of State investigation.
I would agree with you.
I'm gonna continue either up or down. That's how I'd like to approach it. Either she's in or out.
I believe the motion to table takes precedence,
Yep.
and I think that.
I'm making my comments.
I see.
Mr. Supervisor, I would make a motion to postpone this item until such time that the state investigation has been completed and then bring it back to the board.
Motion to postpone indefinitely then?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Supervisor, if I could just provide, I know Clerk Barry, you're much more familiar with the Secretary of State timeline. The current investigation was originally filed in October. There was a period of time for me to file a rebuttal. I filed that in November. The latest email that I received from the Secretary of State was that the complainant is afforded an opportunity to respond to my rebuttal. I believe that 10-day window is rapidly approaching. Whether or not she asked for an extension, I don't know. The Secretary of State will make a finding, and all of this will be public record, so the dates in terms of the completion of the investigation will be available to the board and to the members of the public on the Secretary of State website.
Thank you. Motion to postpone indefinitely. Item 10N.
I support that.
Motion by Clerk Barry, supported by Trustee Hornberger. Any further discussion? Clerk Barry.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10O.
Item 10, it was a recommendation from the Streets, Sidewalks, and Pathways Committee to consider the cost-share agreement between Chesterfield Township and Macomb County for the rehabilitation of Sugar Bush Road from Callens to Jefferson. This agreement is a 50-50 split between the township and Macomb County in the amount of $299,974 for each entity. The initial township deposit for engineering design is $65,000.
Is there a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Mitch.
Good evening. This project is funded similar to the 23 Mile Road reconstruction project was just completed last year. This is not a reconstruction project, it is a rehabilitation project, so it'll be a milling, some base repair, and then a capping project. Roughly 80% of the construction cost is funded by the federal government, and then the township and the county split the remaining costs 50-50.
Discussion from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Mr. O'Connor, I'm just curious, on the 50-50 split, are we 50-50 splitting the financial, or does the county reserve the right to substitute their, I don't know what they call it, the sweat equity? They put in engineering, or they cover costs. Are we matching dollar for dollar, or are we putting up money and they're putting up services, I guess?
Yeah, this project will be designed and bid by the County Department of Roads. And let's just say for simple math, it costs $20,000 to prepare those bidding documents. They will pay $10,000, we'll pay, we're matching 50% of their cost.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further discussion? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10O.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Aye. Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Clerk Barry. Aye.
Item 10P.
Item 10P is a recommendation from the Streets, Sidewalks, and Pathways Committee to award engineering design services to Spalding DeDecker for the Jefferson Avenue Pathway Project Phase 2 in the amount of $41,040.
Is there a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make
Move.
a motion to approve.
Second.
Supported by Trustee Vosberg. Mitch, again.
Good evening. If you see the map up there, the Jefferson is the road at the bottom of the screen. The purple line is phase 1 of the project, which is going to be constructed and funded this year. The project we're discussing tonight is I'm going to call it green, that goes from the school property halfway up and up to Sugar Bush, with the intent to also receive TAP grant funding for the construction of that project.
Discussion from the board. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. I know we've already got, I think, 6 figures tied up in this project, as I recall. And I know there's a need for pathways and that, but I'm kind of concerned some of our county roads that run through our subdivisions. We've got Forbes, Pheasant, several other ones out there that are falling apart. They haven't been touched in 30-plus years, and I would hope that this new committee would also try to bring some relief to the residents in those areas. I mean, you go down some of these side streets, they're deplorable, and our kids are walking on those too. As much as these paths are enjoyable, I think we need to start looking at the county's roads, try to work out deals with them like we're getting on Sugar Bush and that too. So for that reason, I won't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10P. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee Hornberger? Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10Q.
Item 10Q is to approve a recommendation by the IT Department to purchase 3 new servers, storage appliance, and network switches to replace the equipment installed in 2016 in the amount not to exceed $184,287.12, and to amend the increase to the 2025 IT budget.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion.
Support.
Is Treasurer Elliott support? Karen, you want to touch on this?
Hello. So we're bringing this item for the 3 new server storage to the board. The existing servers are 8 years old, and as of right now, we would like to move ahead with Laserfish. However, we cannot move ahead with Laserfish because we do not have the adequate storage for that, as well as if we want to move further along with new technology, we can't use the existing servers. I know last year, about a year and a half ago, we did have our old vendor tell us that these wouldn't last through the year. We did get through that year and a half. They were on capital plan for the last couple of years and kind of got pushed aside. So we're bringing them in front of the board so that we can move forward. I did put some key benefits in there that will enhance the scanning, support digital initiatives such as the Laserfish. They're a long-term investment that the township does need, and I'm open to any questions that anyone has.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Clerk Berry.
Mr. Supervisor, not so much a question, but a statement to the board. So more and more of township records and operations are being stored on our servers, and it's critical that the server environment be a stable server environment. And from a records perspective, as your records administrator here for the township, I have some concerns that if we don't replace these servers, that we are, every day is another risk that we may lose some of that digital metadata. And if we do, then that compromises records, it compromises operations, and with having, technology doesn't have a very long shelf life, unfortunately, but yet so many of our applications are reliant upon it. And I'd like to ask my fellow board members to please consider that when considering this item. This is quite necessary from a number of perspectives, and the more of a digital environment we work within, we have to have a stable IT server environment in order to support that.
Any further questions? Trustee Joseph.
Sorry, Karen, I was just curious, This was server problems they've been with us for the last couple of years, and we've had some pretty, in-depth discussions. I'm just curious, we knew that we were on borrowed time with our existing, server capacity and the ability to even service some of the new, software and the programming that we're trying to get out of it is, just lack of a better term, outdated. It's just not. Why not include that in the budget for the 2025 budget? So in this instance, did the cost of the servers catch us by surprise? Because we're in essence, we're adding an additional $180,000 to the budget. Was the logic just we'll wait to see the final number and not, try to put a placeholder in the budget? Or it just seems like a little bit of a disconnect from something that we knew, and now we're making a budget amendment. And so I was just wondering what the school of thought was there. And then the second question I had, are we confident that this investment in the server upgrade will sort of remedy the clerk's question, which I'm guessing might lead right into agenda item R, that there is a companion piece to this, and that without it, we really shouldn't be looking to add anything new to the current server, because it's Swiss cheese in essence. So can you address those two areas?
Yeah, so you are correct. We have put this in the budget for the last couple of years, and it has been removed. So I can put it in the budget, but I can't control if it's removed or not. So it has been pushed aside, I think in hopes that it would just last longer. However, when we talked with the developers of Laserfish, they kind of let us know probably about 6 months ago, that there's no way that we can move ahead with the new Laserfish product without these servers.
Karen, can I fill in a little bit?
Sure.
So the reason it was pushed to the side on the budget was because of this building. The server room, which was doubled as box storage, record storage, anything you could put in there was jammed in there. A real evaluation of the servers was never completed until we started looking at it. So we had brought in an IT company that started looking at it, evaluating it, along with making sure that that environment fit servers, which is dynamic and needs space and air conditioning, and our building just couldn't support it. So we tied it into the renovation project of this building. And in fact, Josh posted a picture tonight of the server room now that we are almost building. And we are now, with the technology, as you stated, that we've invested in, we now need that additional server space to continue to move forward. We are looking, obviously, college storage is a big part of that, but most of the records, we need to maintain some control over internally. And that's why it was pushed back. I think now is a good time. We always knew it was going to come. We always knew it was going to happen, but we had to get a footing and a foundation to at least move forward on.
I appreciate you giving that explanation, because my concern was, as we work to try to pair up, shore up the budget, and we're preparing for, we started the 2025 budget, back late summer, fall. Each department has a general idea of what they anticipate spending in the upcoming year. Director Bassett and on our public safety team, we're talking about how many police cars and what, the rotation, so that you can get an accurate budget. It just, I don't like to have a budget that we pass, and then in January we're making an amendment at $180K on something that we knew. I think in this instance, what I'm understanding is because of the dynamic nature of the construction, we really didn't know what that number would be, and there's no sense ballparking it when the ballpark is just going to be that wide and massive. So, I appreciate the effort that went into getting the exact number. And the second part of that was, do we think that this investment will align us with what we believe to be the software and, well, frankly, the next agenda item, and any other things that we need to, get out of that server? Does this cover that?
I believe that this is going to get us to the point where we have our records coordinator, Erica. She'll be able to start organizing that Laserfish software that is a online storage cabinet, and she unfortunately hasn't been able to do that without the storage. So.
Any further questions, discussion? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, and Dave, I may address some of those questions you have in the next agenda item.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Supported by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 10Q. Clerk Barrett.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10R.
Item 10R is to approve a request by the Clerk's Department to begin Phase 1 of the Chesterfield Township Records Project in the amount of $175,000.
Is there a motion to approve?
Clerk Barry will make a motion.
Barry, is there any support?
Well, Supervisor, for the purposes of discussion, I'm going to support the motion and at least hear from our records person about this, if I could. So I support.
Supported by Trustee Joseph.
Mr. Supervisor, just to kind of introduce the project, we could have done this as a presentation, and we were considering doing that without any type of agenda item to ask for any funds, but it didn't make much sense to give a presentation to the board and make them aware of our records environment without giving some kind of an idea of what the solution is to solve the issues that we have. So that's why we put it on the agenda this way. The solution and project that Erica, our records coordinator, and I are going to present to you is completely scalable. So whatever the board would like to allocate in terms of funds to address it, we can scale the project that way. So what you're going to see presented to you here in a few minutes is a 3-year project. This is based on a 3-year program, at the end of which the goal is to have 90% of all township records available in our electronic content management system and digitized, which would essentially make us almost an entirely digital community, our association, organization. So again, we don't have to do it in 3 years. I can tell you that right now the township has approximately 5 million records that are in physical hard copy that need to be converted. When I got here 12 and a half years ago, we had close to 10 million. So the time frame that it's taken us to get through 5 million of those records is approximately with the staff that we have had has been 11 and a half years, to give you an idea of timeline. So we can certainly continue going on status quo of what we've been doing. That's completely fine. But if we understand that there's a desire for the board to expedite the process, we just gave you a scenario for that, but it is not the scenario you have to go with. You can, whatever the board decides to allocate, we can scale the project accordingly. So just wanted to let you know before Erica got started.
All right, thank you. Good evening. The item before you tonight is the beginning phase of the Township Record Project. It entails a multi-step process, which will be explained during this presentation. Prior to digitizing records into our record management system, substantial man-hours are needed to prep, store, and index existing files. The first few slides of the presentation were found on the DTMB. I will touch on the information that pertains to this project. I'm just going to go over a few key points. So I want to touch on if the information is recorded, it is a record. Destruction must be authorized by an approved retention and disposal schedule. Records must remain accessible and usable for the entire retention period. All right, a few benefits of shared filing, which would be a digital record system. Retrieval, only one filing system needs to be searched. Turnover, records are not lost when employees depart. And legal liability, reduce risk that record-keeping issues will create problems for FOIA and litigation. problems with independent filing, which is how we are currently handling a lot of our paper records. Volume, employees, hoard non-essential documents, drafts, and duplicates. Security, confidential, or sensitive records may not be securely stored, and customer service, inconsistent application of procedures. And a solution. Work records are the property of the office, not the individual employee. Work records should be stored in shared filing systems instead of individual user accounts or workspaces. Independent storage of records wastes resources, reduces accessibility, and increased risks. And supervisors for each department are responsible for designating where the files are shared. And this is a photo of one of our staff members doing the records process.
And just to point out, Erica, if you can just kind of go back to that. So you see all of those file boxes that are there behind him. That is a fraction of we have about 250 records boxes that are currently in our office that are kind of first up. Those are the ones we're currently working on right now and plan to work on through the balance of the year. However, that only represents approximately 10% of all of the records boxes we have in the township. We have approximately 2,600 records boxes. It amounts to approximately 5 million records. So that is just a fraction of what we have.
All right, so this project is the first step, and we are just doing all of the prep work. So the deconstruction of a record box, the first step is to identify and tag. We have to look at each document to see if it is an original, a copy, and what department the record belongs to according to the retention schedule. Step 2 is sort and organize. We sort them by the date the record was created. And then step 3, categorize and index. See if the record has met its retention period. If so, the record must be placed under the destruction log and destroyed. And you are also at this step identifying the metadata. And step 4, properly index records by department and retention schedule and prepare for physical or electronic storage. And these are just a couple examples of how some record boxes look. They are a mess. There's different files in each box from different departments, so we have to go through each one individually and deconstruct all records in every box. This is kind of just another overview of step 1, identifying and tagging each individual record. Step 2, the sorting and organizing. And then step 3, to categorize and store. And then this is an example of what our records inventory and destruction logs look like. And then Clerk Barry was going to discuss the remainder of the project.
So when we're talking about the scope of the project, now that we've kind of showed you the currently existing environment, our project goals here are to improve the efficiency of retrieval. And that's retrieval for not only those who work here in the township, but all the public as well, because this will create an online library that will be accessible to the public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, certain information will be redacted if it is not allowed to be publicly shared. Meanwhile, individuals inside the township will have access to the full record so that they can adequately do their job. So there is a way to discern between who gets to see what information. The other piece is compliance, and this is so that the township is fully compliant with the retention schedules that are set by the state of Michigan. Every record that we have here in the township is even not owned by the township. It is the property of the people of the state of Michigan, and the state of Michigan dictates how those records need to be maintained and when they need to be destroyed. So in order to keep compliant, obviously you can see from those boxes, we have no idea what's in them. We have to go through each and every piece of paper that's in each of those files in each of those boxes. It has to be analyzed, and then it has to be assigned its retention schedule. So it takes a lot of man hours to do that. Third is preservation. We have some records that are literally disappearing from our eyes as we look at them. In particular, you may all remember for a long time when faxes first came out, everybody was faxing everything, but then they used thermal paper, and thermal paper, ink literally disappears off thermal paper, if you've ever seen a fax copy of something. So many of the records are on thermal paper or on paper that is either disintegrating. We have a lot of that with our large scale prints, where they're literally, you look inside and you think you're seeing dust inside boxes, but what you're seeing is actual paper disintegrating inside their files and inside their boxes. So we literally have records, oftentimes permanent records, that are literally disappearing as we speak. So we need to preserve those records. We need to find them as soon as possible and get them scanned in and preserved so that we do not lose them. And fourth is to reduce the costs. The project that we're proposing to the board tonight will ultimately reduce the cost of scanning, because we have determined that of the 5 million records we're currently holding, approximately 30% of them have either met their retention or they are copies that we don't want to pay to scan. So scanning is very expensive. We've included for the board Bloomfield Townships. They just went out for an RFP for their scanning project, and they've allocated $450,000 out of their ARPA funds to pay for just the scanning of that and the prepping of their documents, which means taking out staples and paper clips and so forth. But that cost, you can see how much it costs to scan each piece of paper. So every piece of paper we don't scan, we're saving that much in terms of the financing on the end of it. We estimate by doing that we will be able to reduce that cost by 30%, which can be significant. Again, this is an example of our records inventory list and how we're currently keeping track of all of our records and where they are. The township has approximately 5 million records that are in active and inactive storage. The difference between that is an active storage is something that someone's using on a daily basis. Inactive storage is something that we are required by law to keep, but it is not actively being used on a daily basis. So based on the time studies, we currently, as I said, have 2,580 boxes, the equivalent of 2,580 boxes of records currently. And based on the time studies that we have conducted here on site, as well as in looking at other municipalities, industry experts, we have approximately 19,500 labor hours that are required to identify, sort, categorize, and prepare those records for digital conversion and importation to Laserfiche. So we need to ascertain how we are going to manage those 19,500 hours. Either we can do that over the course of, again, what we're going to show you is a 3-year period, or we can do it over 12 years. You know, it's entirely up to the board. We will scale it according to the board's wishes. Okay. Here's our timeline for execution. I think the last slide that we showed you showed that what we are proposing is we are proposing a hybrid approach to this. We would like to bring in a supplemental workforce of record specialists, individuals who are specially trained and certified in records handling, to assist all of our departments and their staff in managing their records. Our departments are all going to be responsible for managing their own scheduled records. However, we understand, and as we've been told many times from our department heads, they have a lot of other work to do. They can't dedicate one person all day, every day to doing this, and we understand that. So we'd like to bring a supplemental workforce in that will assist all of those departments. They will have, some departments may even have 2 people assigned to them, such as building, because it's very voluminous. So we will take that supplemental work staff, and they will be doing 50% of all of this work. 25% of the project will be completed by our existing individuals in our various departments, and 25% of the project work time, will be done by the clerk staff. And each one of those groups of workers will have specified pieces of this project. The advantage to using, I apologize, Karen. The advantage to using in-house staff is that we have less risk of damage, we're not moving so many things into multiple places, less risk of sensitive information being accessed by unauthorized personnel, and we have complete control of the project. So should the board want to make changes, or should we recommend changes, and then we have to adopt to something else, we can easily do that because we're not committed to anyone. We're completely taking care of that in-house. So it allows us to make changes as necessary. Our timeline for execution is this. We have already started this project, so we have it started in January of 2025. However, we are just using our clerk staff to do this at this time, and you saw a picture of that. So we've begun this project. If the board approves the allocation of funds to hire the supplemental staff, then we will, this is the timeline that we expect, and this is a 3-year timeline. So by the end of 2027, 90% of our records will be in a digital format and accessible through the public portal for the public as well as for our staff. Okay, projected cost, and again, I kind of wanted to give you the full picture, and then the board can determine how you'd like to approach it. The first, what we call the first phase, which is getting into all of those records and doing the first 3 steps with the assistance of our record specialists, that's really where this is. This is mostly labor intensive. There are some supplies that are required, boxes, labels, some other things that may be necessary. But this is bulk labor. And so the majority of the cost is with the labor force. And if we utilize the record specialists at 14,500 hours, which is, again, the majority of this project, it would cost us approximately $350,000 to get all of those records prepared for digitizing. And then I would recommend a hybrid approach of having a vendor and going out for RFP for the actual scanning of those images. We estimate that would be approximately $300,000 based on if we do all of that prep work in-house. Otherwise, then you can, add another $150,000 to that 300 because that's about what they charge for just taking out staples and paper clips. I can tell you they're charging for 3 million records for Bloomfield Township. For 3 million records, the vendor is charging almost $100,000 just to take out staples and paper clips. And that's certainly something that we can do in-house while we are doing all of these other tasks. So I believe this is the most cost-effective way to approach this. It's an ugly number, it's big. All communities who go digital have to take a look at this elephant and figure out how we're going to eat this. And if we're going to do anything at all. So so it's basically up to the board how to approach this, but this would be an investment over a 3-year period of time. And the reason why we're asking for a $175,000 this year is because our goal is to get 50% of them done this year. For a couple of reasons. One, when we move into 2026, any election year, I have to take my staff and they have to be switched over to mostly elections functions. So I'm not going to be able to have as much accessibility from our internal staff for that. We're estimating if we can get 50% done this year, another 30% done next year, and then in 2027, the first part will take the last piece, 20-30% that's left, and then be able to move on to a vendor. So that's, again, a 3-year scenario, but we don't have to do it that way. And we can do it any way the board would like, and the clerk's office is prepared to do whatever it is the board pleases.
Treasurer Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So I want to kind of go back, if you don't mind, Clerk Berry, and talk about my experience here with Erica and some of the things that we've gone through the last couple of weeks. So management meeting last week, you and I talked afterwards, and Treasury Department has all of our records in proper order. We have everything properly labeled. We have scanners at our desk. So I say to Erica, I'm like, we're ready. You have us, start off with our department, and we'll go ahead and we'll put our documents in. You're shaking your head at me. No, can't happen. And that goes back to because we don't have the servers, Laserfish isn't ready, there's all these other problems with that. So this item comes to the agenda. And so today, I went over to the youth center and met Erica and Clerk Barry over there. And you have been sharing some things about your experience here as you've come on in the township, and I had told you today to share what you're experiencing from your point of view. If you don't mind, we're at the youth center, right? What is my first comment when I walked into the youth center and you guys were over there? My first comment was, it still smells like mold, or what was that? It smells terrible. And you said you had headaches working over at the youth center. So that was, and I said, let's get out of here. But in the meantime, you did, as we were walking through there, you walked me through, you showed me some of the stuff, and I said it was in better shape, it was more organized than I anticipated. And there are quite a few documents. There's just documents upon documents in all kinds of different cases and ways. But those were fairly easily marked. Then we met over here, and when we came back over here into the clerk's space here in the senior center, you guys had shown me the documents that you had there. One of the things that was very kind of disturbing was that you had pulled boxes out. And so when I have a box in my office, it's labeled with, it's a treasury box versus, say, an accounting box or water and sewer box. There's a number, there's a retention date, there's a whole list of everything on the front of that. However, they have boxes, and quite a few of them, that just say WS number 82. And in that box, you open it up, and there's nothing for water and sewer. It's just a hodgepodge of stuff that's been, and you said that was because maybe some of these boxes have been reused, and they were just thrown in storage. You don't have one or two of those. What do you have of those?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of those.
Yes, it is very frustrating when we're trying to locate a specific document. There's no starting point, like trying to find a legal document, for instance, or a resolution back from the 70s. You're going through 300 boxes trying to find a needle in the haystack, trying to locate something specific. It is going to take a lot of time to go through each and every box, to organize it, to get it to a point where we can take these documents and put them into Laserfish once it is up and running. Because before we can even import these documents, we have to categorize them, we have to index them, we have to prep them, get them ready for the scanning portion. With the retention schedules, there's a lot more to it than just taking the documents and scanning them with a scanner and putting them in there. There's a whole process behind it.
Thank you. I think that's kind of gives us a little bit of an understanding of what you're trying to tackle right now, and that's this portion. Now, whether or not that these numbers, if the board agrees with these particular numbers, that's a different conversation. But I guess it's, do we need to address this issue? And we absolutely do. But how? I think I'll let some other questioning go. Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Gosford?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a question. I support getting everything digitized. It needs to be. But what I'm wondering is, have we been digitizing the records for the past year? Are these just old records, or are they current records as well?
It's a combination. What I've found over the last decade of trying to get all of this implemented is that we had great compliance from some departments, and then you had very little or maybe no compliance from others. So there were some departments that were very aggressive in doing it. For example, building. Building has been very cooperative for a long time. And so they have quite a few of their records that are, have already been digitized. But they have so many that we still have that many left. So the ones that are in the boxes, I mean, you'll find a record from 2022, but then you'll turn around and the next thing you pick up is from 1985.
Okay, okay, I'm frustrated even knowing how to craft the question. So are we legally obligated to digitize the records, or keeping them in boxes in compliance?
Great question. We do not have to digitize anything. However, if for a particular record series, whatever that might be, either we're going to keep it digital or we're going to keep it hard copy. You know, so we have to kind of decide which ones we want to do what with. So, but no, there is no requirement whatsoever to digitize. It's just a matter of ease of, you know, the number of risk factors, leaving them physical. Yeah,
Right.
and it's recommended by the National Archives as well as the DTMB, which, by the way, is the state agency that governs all of this, Department of Transportation Management and Budget. It's their recommendation that we convert as much as you can, but they understand the limitations of that. But that's not required.
All right, so I don't want to tell you how to do your job, because I don't know how to do your job, but I guess just in terms of project management, I know that there's been times I've wanted a record and it took a week or so because someone had to go and dig through it to find it. Can we adopt some type of policy that going forward, all records are digitized, or make a determination, yes, this must be digitized, or no, this does not? And I'm going to ask a couple more questions, so don't answer yet. And then, is it possible to just, when I was a county commissioner, I was on the community mental health board, and they have bazillion records, and they started, their policy was all documents from today on are digitized. When there's a need to go into to get something, then they digitized it. They found the records, digitized them, and inserted them in with the current day records with which they, you know, had to do with those. Is there a way that we can do that type of a thing, that type of a policy with, probably not everything, but maybe with some of them? And are those the types of things you're looking at when you're trying to problem solve, how to go about doing this? It just seems like there's a lot of records, and it's also a lot of time. And I was surprised that proposal that was in the agenda, that's not even with our people scanning them. We would hire a company to scan them, even though we have right by our desks, they have the ability to do it, or is this a different type of scanning?
Yes, so there's a couple, those are all fantastic questions. So, yes, we do plan to implement from this point forward, these records are going to be either created in an electronic environment or you're going to digitize these, and this is how you go about doing it. When you go into Laserfiche, one of the challenges that you have is that you have to create a template. The template, and I don't want to get too techy here, but it's made up of metadata. All that means is dates, authors, what's the title of this. So in order to make that consistent, we have to make it consistent with, for example, the record that was created 20 years ago. We still have that record today, but it might look very different. So the template that we would create for the record today needs to take into account what that record looked like 20 years ago. So, you know, that's part of the issue, but we can certainly work something like that. And essentially that's what we've been doing for the last, say, 10 years or so. As we've been finding records, we've been, you know, scanning them in or whatever. So we can do it on a go-forward basis, and then nobody will have paper records. But then we have to get people to get rid of the paper record, too, which has been a challenge, because the other thing that we're finding is there's an awful lot of copies. People hold on to stuff. They want to hold on to the physical paper. But if you have an electronic record, it's either the record physical or it's the record electronic. There can't be two because now you have a copy. So that's just more of a behavioral training thing. But yes, we can absolutely do that. And that's kind of what, like I said, what we've been doing for the last 10 years. As we're finding things, we're integrating. So yes, we can do that. And then the issue with, can we scan things here? There's a couple of challenges with it. First challenge is having the equipment that we need that's sensitive enough to scan some of these old records. Some of them have to be specially handled, especially those large prints, and the ones that are kind of falling apart and things. So it's knowing, you know, it's having the proper equipment and the time. You know, when we've got one piece of equipment that we're scanning records on, or even 5 pieces of equipment, the vendors have hundreds, and some of their equipment is very, you know, it's $250,000 just for that piece of equipment. So in order to accommodate, we wouldn't be able to accommodate all of our records anyways, and they can do, it would take us literally having, again, you'd need a crew of people sitting there scanning all day long, every day, yeah. So it's just a matter of the timing. It would just take a lot of time.
Okay, so again, I support the concept of us getting all these records in order, but it just sounds like there's an awful lot that has to be done yet that that maybe doesn't cost this much money yet. Eventually, we're going to have to spend this money.
Yes,
it's
eventually,
the timing.
right.
It's the timing of it. So
correct. Yeah, this is.
That's all I have. You don't have to address all that.
Yeah.
But that's, all right.
Yeah, but true. Yeah, and eventually, the thing is, the longer it takes, the more it is going to cost. That's something that's inevitable because the cost of labor goes up, materials go up. You know, all the costs go up. So we'll revise this if we end up stretching it out. You know, for a decade or so, the price will increase, you know, but we can keep the board apprised of that. But we can do with whatever we've got, we'll do the best we can.
Trustee Jules?
Mr. Supervisor, I supported the motion just to afford the clerk the opportunity to make her presentation, and Erica, I appreciate the detail that you provided.
Thank you.
At the end of the discussion, and I'm not suggesting that we move this along because I am eager to talk about chickens, and I do want to get to that agenda item, but I was kind of finding myself in agreement as Trustee Vosberg laid it out. I understand the problem. I just don't see at this point that the best remedy to that problem is $175,000 infusion into the clerk's department. I would much rather see what we can accomplish, and Clerk Berry, I know you were working diligently to get your full-time deputy, and now you have, at least with the approval of the previous agenda item, servers that maybe can accommodate some of the existing Laserfish capability. So I don't think I could support the agenda item today. I do tend to agree with Trustee Vosberg. And then the last thing that I would just say is the concerns about various departments. You're the official record keeper for the entire township, but collaboration with other departments and who does what probably rests with some dialogue with the supervisor's office, because policies, all the departments answer to him. So you independently negotiating with different departments to get records and so forth, maybe from a project management standpoint. We look at it from a systemic standpoint. We establish who's going to do what from what departments. And now that you have the capabilities electronically with the addition of the new servers, looking at your timeline rollout, April 25 is when you have projected that the Laserfish system development, you couldn't even do that before we approved that agenda item tonight, which enhances the server capacity. So maybe just sort of identifying, you know, we start with the beginning, and we have a systemic approach and policy involving all the other departments. You get your servers on board, and then you can better see what we can do before. I think it's premature to start with 175K, although I do see you're going to need that, and you know, maybe $500,000 more. But this is, you said the elephant, and how we eat it is one bite at a time. I don't think that the first bite is 175K. Thanks.
Just a question, Trustee Joseph. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask if there is a number that you would be comfortable with in terms of the amount of the bite for this year.
Yeah, I just don't see, and again, I like the invitation, but I don't know that you will. I don't want to be, in your department, but I see a lot of these as basically the clerk function. And so for a long time, as you were presenting it, I'm saying, this isn't a new problem. This is the function of the clerk's office. So you've been the clerk as long as I've been a trustee. And so, how do we deal with an individual that comes in and wants to see a copy of a fax that was sent in 2008? I guess just go and get a dust broom and sweep it into the pan and hand it to them. It just doesn't exist. So putting money towards digitizing that seems like an exercise in futility. So I don't really have the number, but I would like to sit down with you, and if there's some help that the trustees can give in terms of talking, Mr. Supervisor, with what other departments are doing with records before we go the 175K route. I'd like to see what you can do with a new deputy and new server capacity. That's a good start. So I don't know if you have anything, to add, but that's where I'm at tonight.
We're good. From my perspective, this is the cart before the horse, and there's several issues that need to be addressed before this even starts, and we're not there yet. We are building a foundation for it, and I can tell you, again, no disrespect, we started with Laserfish back in 2015, and it still is less than 20% utilized. We have been struggling to get that technology used across the board, and to Trustee Vosberg's point, yes, there will come a date when the system is completely designed and set up and functional that we will receive all documents in electronic format, period. The work of going backwards over several years to scan in documents, I personally, the value's not there. Are records in disarray and difficult to mine? Yes, they are. We've struggled with that ever since I've been here. Erica and the staff have been wonderful trying to find it. They spend days trying to locate documents, but the 175, I can't, we're not there yet. The other issue is that, the system has to be designed, and the struggle that this staff has had over the years while it was here was how should that look like to be forward-facing so the residents can see it and search on their own. They don't have to come here, and that is the ultimate goal, whether it be a 1970 document or a 2025 document. We turn it loose in our web space, and the residents can look for whatever they need. We're not there yet, and it's going to be some time before we get there, but we're making progress. So the other, again, you've covered most of it. I can't support this. We're not there yet. We've got a lot of work to do before even this, to me, and for my space, is real. And to your point, Trustee Vosberg, we've got some design to do before I can support this sort of expense. So I'll leave it at that.
So my question back to the board is, and I'll ask the same question to the supervisor, again, it doesn't matter to us. We're doing this anyway. So when we say we're not there, we're already doing this. The clerk's office is doing this right now. So it doesn't matter to us. It was just a matter of, we just wanted the board to understand that with the staff that we currently have, the timeline is 12 years. That's what it took for the first $5 million. It's going to take 12 years for the next 5. So we just want to make sure, because we just do not want to be in a position in the clerk's office, and I think all of my staff has expressed it. We're going to do everything that we can to move it as quickly as we can, but we're going to do it right. And so we just don't want there to be expectations that, okay, we've got Laserfish up and running, now let's put in all these and nothing will be ready. I mean, we'll have some ready, but it'll be a very, very small amount. But we'll do our best, and if the board wants to approve any amount of an allocation, we will utilize that to cover more ground. But if not, we just need to know what the board would like to do.
Yeah, I get,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So if it's nothing, that's fine. We'll make a plan for
I'm
that.
good with the status quo right now.
Okay.
No, Mr. Supervisor, if I could.
Yep.
There's a number of questions about the management of the project, and I thought Trustee Vosberg did a nice job of saying, like, I'm not trying to tell you your job, but if I understand the problem, what about this, what about this, what about this? Listening to you talk with the supervisor, the question becomes, is this the project? You're saying, what would the board like to allocate to this? And I'm saying, where was the determination made that we have a $650,000 record digitization problem? And is that even a problem? Can you simply just sort of wave the white flag? And I'm wondering, why not focus on from here now? Instead of adding to the covered pile over at the youth center, why don't we simply develop and put our collective efforts towards what we do with records that come in today, digitize them, create a plan to do that, and then reevaluate the backlog? Because you're putting the board in a position of say, like, okay, well, here's the problem. We got a mothballed building filled with records. How do we get them digitized? And it fails to ask the question, why would that be a priority? Is that a priority to begin with? You're saying it is, and we're going to continue to.
I would say no.
Yeah, and that maybe is a board decision that we need.
Do we move forward from day one when
Yeah,
the
like why
system's
not?
up and running?
Right.
That's where I'm
And we
at.
have a server. We know tonight. We approved the server. We have Laserfish. We've been dumping money into that for as long as I've been on, and the problem has always been server capacity. So we have the ingredients now to at least not contribute to the problem. Why don't we focus collectively on that and revisit what to do with the moldy building full of records at a later time?
That's fine. We just needed direction for this year. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. So when I was looking at your projected costs, and we did go over this a little bit earlier today, and you're basically asking for 14,500 labor hours over a 2-year period, so cut that in half.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to call the question. I don't know how long we can go with this, because I would make a motion to call the question.
Support.
Motion to call the question. Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Hornberger? Aye. Trustee Vosberg?
No.
Treasurer Elliott?
No.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, no. Okay. On the motion to approve the request, we're now moving on to call the question. Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Hornberger? No. Trustee Vosberg?
No.
Treasurer Elliott?
No.
Supervisor Kersten?
No.
Thank you.
Item 10S.
Item 10S is a request for the Planning Commission to prepare an ordinance amendment to allow for chickens in residential neighborhoods in Chesterfield Township.
Is there a motion to approve?
Clerk Berry, make a motion.
Clerk Berry, is there any support? Is there any support? Is there any support? Seeing no support for the motion, item fails. We'll move on to item 11, addendums. There are none. Public comments. Public comment section, item 12. There's a 3-minute time limit. If you would, please state your name for the record. It is not required, just helps us keep track.
My name's Joe Kadich, I live on Sutton. I wanted to discuss something I've been trying to get on board and get some answers out of Supervisor Kersten, is basically the money that's put in the budget and also included in the water and sewer bills for depreciation should be used for replacing lines. It was done, would you mind passing these on? It's been done in the past. This came out of the water board that was in place back when Lovelock was a supervisor, and determined what goes in and how money is charged on the water bills. It's not been changed since, other than upgrading for differences in charges, but it's always showed, if you look at there, depreciation and replacement. Back then, it's probably a little more now, it amounted about 90 cents for the water and $1.13 for the sewer. So like $2 for each 1,000 gallons in your water bill they're paying for the depreciation that we're supposed to use for replacement of lines. We've not had that done. Accavetti did probably part of it. He did, I think, 4 projects. Supervisor Kersten's not done any. And, you know, you're talking about $2 million plus a year over 4 years, probably $275. And that money is not showing up anyplace as surplus. It's been spent on other things. That's why I've been after him. He had a water study done by HRW, I think in 22 or 23. And he claims that all of the charges and everything were relisted on that. He's not showing that. And looking at this, the only thing I can think of is you're taking money that people are paying and using it for other things. They're paying for that in the water, should expect it. The Water Commission, there isn't a Water Commission, it probably should have one. You're expecting work to be done. That's why we had so much failure when they had the August rains. I had sewer water in my basement, but people up at Dunn Jefferson with all the side streets had water in their basements, in the sanitary sewer. The storm sewers were a different story. They flooded everything. But somebody's got to answer to this. I don't know how you can put up with somebody that's collecting $2 a 1,000 gallons for every 1,000 gallons of water used, saying it's used for depreciation, but it's collected on depreciation, and we're using it to replace things, and it's not been replaced.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
John Spica, Chesterfield Township. In regards to the compensation that I mentioned for our board members, not this board member, but our other board members that we asked, Planning Commission, ZBA, Advisory, at $30, again, I think it's a joke, and I believe their compensation should have been at least a minimum of $75 per meeting. This board, you know, I'd like to thank the supervisor for at least, you know, listening and including all those organizations for money. This board, again, doesn't have an issue giving away $8.5 million on a sewer line to the wealthy and well-connected on the north end. But when it comes to helping children, women, and families in need, you know, Trustee Vosberg choked tonight when it came to, you know, giving that organization $1,000. I understand they were on the south end, but I would have made the recommendation to go with $1,000. I didn't see this much discussion when it came to the $8.5 million sewer line, and I was in the room Another thing that really bothered me is, one of the trustees said that, I'd like to see, interfaith care get more, but I'm going to settle with $500. Why would you settle? So this is the time to negotiate, and it was the time to get that organization the money that they needed. I would have never settled. I would have put my opinion out there and fought for it. Treasurer Elliott asked a question at any given time on, you could have picked up the phone and you could have asked Michelle how the CDBG funds were figured out. Why would you wait till the meeting and ask that question? That just goes to show me that you were unprepared for that discussion when it came up. Totally unacceptable. I mean, at just a couple meetings ago, you just got a deputy treasurer, a full-time deputy treasurer on top of that. And this board gave itself anywhere from a 10 to 20% pay increase. Again, I totally oppose that pay increase. If we're going to give anybody 10 and 20%, I'm going to give my men and women in uniform on the police department, fire department, that kind of raise, not you guys. So, and again, one of the trustees mentioned how one of the residents sort of, and I want to use the correct terminology, that they're having an issue with one another. What about when a board member attacks a resident and tries to intimidate the resident with legal counsel? How does that work? It's a
Thanks, sir.
two-way street.
Thank you. Any more comments? Any more comments? Bring it- oh.
All right, going off of that final agenda item, what's wrong? Were you guys chicken? I do want to point that out. Well, as a joking aside, I do want to point out. I don't know who was behind that or anything like that, but I do think there was definitely a process to get that on the agenda, and it wasn't even brought up for discussion. A simple yes or no, just discussion on that. A matter of less than a minute to discuss it. You guys could have done that, and nobody even brought that up. The reason I focus on that is you guys have a process to put something on the agenda, to bring it up as a board to discuss it, and utilize a yes or no vote to do so. But when you don't even acknowledge it and you just skip over it, it does kind of bring out to the rest of the general public a lack of care to follow your own process. It has to go through a process to get on the agenda. Not everything goes on the agenda. Very few things end up to be discussed on a governmental meeting. And then when it comes time for it, and it doesn't even get brought up or discussed, someone had to be behind that, and that was their work to get that on there, and it doesn't even get discussed. It really does kind of showcase a lack of care for, and I don't know who was behind it, but it should be in that sense of, it could have been somebody pushing so hard to get that notion on it. And it sounds laughable, but it could, for somebody, that meant something. And what I'm trying to get at saying this is, if that person put all that effort into it and it wasn't even worth a discussion, it showcases a lack of participatory actions in the future from a lot of other residents or people active in township governance or politics in general. That could have been their pet issue, completely ignored by the general public and the government. And it represents everybody else's pet issues. People can get super passionate about politics when it comes down to a time of pure apathy from the vast majority of Americans. And yet, sometimes people get very enthralled on one specific thing that they want to see happen in their community. Oh, I want this 50-foot section of sidewalk, or I want this one class to be administered at the community center, or I want to do this one thing. You can say a bunch of different examples, but that's kind of the key component here, is you want active participation within the community. If you want a greater aspects of the citizenry participation within this country, it needs to start here and apply with listening to even just the littlest concerns.
Thank you, sir. Any more comments from the public? Any more comments? Trustee Anderson, you want to start tonight? You want to start tonight? No?
Thank you, I'll pass tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph?
I'll start with the comments. I'll try to get through as many as I can. Mr. Kadich, I understand exactly where you're coming from on the depreciation. I was on the first chair of the Water Sewer Rate Advisory Committee. It came about because there was a proposed 50% rate increase and no explanation about the things that you've been talking about. We did cover those in the Water and Sewer Rate Advisory Committee after we figured out how many, how to measure the units coming out of Detroit Water and Sewer. We didn't know what 1,000 feet, gallons, so just understanding the problem was a big undertaking, and what we got to was napkin math. If we have $100 million of infrastructure in the ground, it's much more than that now, and we know that just round numbers, that a pipe maybe has a 50-year life expectancy, then we know that every year we lose 2% of that $100 million or $2 million that just rusts away in depreciation. Again, rough napkin math, but we have not, since I've been here, dedicated anywhere close to $2 million a year in a general depreciation schedule and capital improvement. It's a problem, and the money that's in the what should be there for depreciation is not there. And I'm not saying there's malfeasance, but it does. I think you're credibly pointing out that when we take depreciation money and we don't show a replacement of our pipe, it's not an unfair question to say where did that money go? And you should be able to wrap your arms around it. It shouldn't just be, well, it was in the operation. Mr. Wharton, to answer your question about the chicken, the process is a full-time board member can put an agenda item on the agenda. A trustee must have a support. So typically, if I put an agenda item on, I converse with another board member and ask for support just to initiate the debate. In this case, watching the 45-minute debate that happened on the agenda item forward, I thought I could accomplish the spirit of what you were talking about by simply doing this. The Planning Commission oftentimes takes up resident concerns, board member concerns, and what I wanted to do was have a conversation, and I'll do it publicly tonight. Mr. Supervisor, could we ask the Planning Commission to do a cursory overview of the concerns from residents who are expressing an interest in chickens being able to be maintained in a residential? So I think we can do that without the formal request of the Planning Department. I didn't think we needed another, lengthy discussion to cover that. So I do appreciate the spirit of your comments. If I could just finish with the last, Mr. Speaker. Generosity is not a virtue for government. It is not my money. So when I'm talking about settling, I'm talking about an agreement reached on how to distribute monies that come from the taxpayers. This is federal grant money. We are only stewards of earmarking where it goes. We are not producing money. It is not my money. And the idea of not settling really is a spirit that I'm trying to get away from. I find myself at odds more often than not, and so to find an equitable middle ground, and I will be generous in my individual contributions, and I don't think that there's any hero points for being magnanimous or generous with government money. This is not a virtue that the board has. It's not our money. It's just that we're we're stewards of, and we were charged with trying to distribute it as best we could. And what do you do when you have an overwhelming abundance of worthy charities? You can't satisfy every request. I thought we did an okay job, and we agreed to look at the process next year, and hopefully we can do an even better job when we're carving out the CDBG. Lastly, I would like to thank all of the committee members who came tonight and expressed an interest in serving our community. As I said, I've served with most of the individuals that were up for committee reappointments tonight, and I find them all to be very honorable people who I like to think I was a better person for having served with them. Disagreements sometimes is how you learn things from one another, and I learned a lot during my time on the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission, even though there was some tense nights and we didn't always get along and agree on every issue. And I appreciate, for a mere $30, which I know none of you are coming to collect that $30. Mr. Klanowski, I think you brought, I don't know how many meetings where you brought more than $30 in corn, which I was appreciative of as a bonus for those nights in the fall. So it's not about money, and 50 or 75 wouldn't have changed a thing. I appreciate the service, and thank you very much. The last thing I would just say is I appreciate the board's support on the tabling of the one committee member, and I will share with you the outcome of the Secretary of State investigation, and I will make all of those communications public for anybody that would like to know what's going on there. I'd be happy to provide you copies of the complaint, the rebuttal, the response, anything that you want to know. Thank you for those who step forward and are serving our community.
Trustee Ornberg? Trustee Rossberg?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I too would like to thank all of the people who got appointed this evening for their interest in serving or in continuing to serve. So look forward to continued working with you as well.
Treasurer Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Asking a question of somebody at the board table allows for transparency. Not only does it answer the question for myself, but also those who are present in the room. Doesn't indicate unpreparedness, as one of the speakers had spoken. And then I know you're all hanging and wondering what it was that I was saying that I wasn't allowed to finish, and it was basically kind of going through the numbers on what the request actually was. What the request was for man hours primarily from the clerk was 7,250 man hours for the remainder of the year, which ends up being about 30 hours a day in addition, in additional man hours. And maybe when the request comes back, we can kind of take a look at it, maybe in small bites rather than a lump sum as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Well, a couple of things. First and foremost, just because Trustee Joseph is updating everyone as far as an ongoing litigation, I did advise the board that as a result of some very unfortunate and fraudulent text messages that were sent during last summer, which many of our residents received, charges were filed in that case against the perpetrator of the events that occurred after that. And that case is moving forward. I will keep the board informed. My understanding is that next month there will be and I don't know the proper legal term for it, but basically the individual will be he was already formally charged, and now they are moving to the next part of the process. Again, this does not particularly include Chesterfield Township. It does include me as the defendant, or excuse me, not the defendant. I beg your pardon. The prosecutor, the people of the state of Michigan, brought the case against the defendant, and he is going to be having a hearing next month. I may have to also be involved in that, so just wanted everyone to be aware. So if you see it in the paper, I'm not the defendant. I am actually maybe called and subpoenaed on behalf of the state of Michigan, who's prosecuting him in that case. Also, with regards to the chicken ordinance, the way that that came about is I have had many residents come to me, especially over the holidays. We had many during COVID, but and then it kind of went down with the request for why can't we have chickens in Chesterfield? I said, I really don't know. Has the board taken it up? I don't know, but I'd be happy to bring it to the board and have them make a decision. And so, you know, for me, this was, I live in a condo, so I couldn't have chickens anyway. It doesn't matter to me. But these were residents who were seeking access to their government to get something that was important to them in front of the decision makers. That was the point. That was the goal. Whether we said yes or no didn't matter, but this is the process that I was advised by our attorney needed to be followed in order to have these residents' concerns heard, and that's what it was for. The Planning Commission would have public hearings and all of that, and go through the process, as our Planning Commission members know. So. That is where I was at. For the record, when and if it ever comes back to the board, I'm a yes on chickens, even though I can't have them in my condo. But for those of you, for me, it was a principal decision. For me, it was, this is a situation of an egg shortage and now an extraordinary cost for eggs that was perpetrated by some very stupid decisions by the previous presidential administration and his Department of Agriculture, and by a very stupid decision by the state of Michigan and our governor that has put our residents in a position where either they can't get eggs or they have to pay $10 a carton for them. This was an opportunity for us, and I'm going to run out of time, Mr. Supervisor. I asked for just some leniency. This was an opportunity for us at the local level to advocate for the interests of our residents that are being forced into buying $10 a carton or a dozen eggs, and to give them an option. So for me, that's where I was coming from on it, and I also wanted to be an advocate to have the residents' concerns heard. So that's what that was about. Again, the records project doesn't matter to us how we go about that, but my position was we could have done it just as a presentation, but I'm also, the way that I operate, I'm not going to bring a problem in front of the board and not bring a solution with it. So it didn't matter. We just brought a potential solution. There are multiple solutions, and we're happy to explore any of those. But we did want the board to be fully aware of the problem and the environment so that they are aware of the situation with regards to our records. Thank you.
Just real quick, the next board meeting's at the community center, just another reminder. And as you see, as we shared on our Facebook page, we are still doing the due diligence and cleanup of the property pending. Jefferson and Altman, Jefferson across from the park, and then obviously the piece that was just collected behind the township here. If anybody wants to walk through it, I'm glad to walk through them with them on a Saturday or Sunday or after hours. I will bring pretty soon, I've said this before, I'm still working on it, bring some sort of proposal to market township property through real estate. We did that 2-3 years ago, and I'm going to take a different approach to it if the board is interested. I would like, due to recent legislation change, I would like to create or begin the discussion of, and internally we have with Treasurer Elliott, some sort of downtown development authority that develops, and we have key areas, 23 in Gratiot, obviously the one, 26 Mile Road, another one. Those are discussions that I'd like to begin to have. Our QBS team, as I stated, we're formulating them, working through the process of how to formulate them. I originally was going to have just one group. After further conversation, I think it's going to take several groups. Mr. Kadich, there is several water and sewer project upgrades that are scheduled in this year's budget. The specific locations we've targeted are Jefferson, and obviously that is going to be dependent on the Jefferson reconstruction that the county is proposing. CDBG funds are allocated through a group, through the grants group. There are several emails that went out, and again, next year, we'll try and get better at dispersing those funds and getting groups involved. Mr. Speaker, the tree climbing, tree trimmer, we don't have the capabilities of high trees and high buckets and the talent of scaling trees to remove limbs, and that is a growing area of our township that we need to address. So yes, we do use a vendor for that has the proper equipment, proper training, and proper safety gear. That's not an expertise that we have in-house. Mr. Kadich, if you're interested, you can apply online for any boards or commission. We repost them several, looking for community members that are interested. Literally, all you gotta be is a resident. Qualifications are left up and open. To your comment of questioning whether they're interviewed and what qualifications they bring to the table, I leave those to the department heads. There are occasions where I meet with them simply to go over appointments. But they are residents, and they are residents usually in good standing, and as you can see, we selected one to replace a exiting member. And on speaking to the zoning boards and other boards and commitment, there are people that come and go and they can't make the full commitment. Their jobs move for whatever reason, and we're always looking for volunteers. So why don't you join in? Applications online, love to have you. With that being said, I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there any support? Support. Trustee Joseph, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?